Welcome to Season 6 of the Charity Matters podcast. I'm Heidi Johnson, nonprofit founder, lifelong helper, and your host. I've been interviewing these modern-day heroes for over a decade with my blog, and I'm so excited to share these inspiring conversations in our podcast. Join me as we learn the challenges and stories of innovators, entrepreneurs, and modern-day heroes who set out to solve the problems of humanity. Have you ever thought about what it takes to be a single parent and not have a car? How do you get to work? How do you get your children to school? How do you pick your children up? How do you get to the doctor? Today's guest is no stranger to that fact. Cindy Whitman, the founder of Driving Single Parents, is joining us today to share her incredible journey from domestic abuse survivor to nonprofit founder. And I can't wait for you to learn about all she's doing to make a difference in the world. You're not going to want to miss it. I'm so excited today to welcome Cindy Whitman, the founder of Driving Single Parents. Hi, Cindy. Thank you for being here today. We're so happy you're here.
Hello, nice to see you. And thank you for having me on. I'm super excited to talk about the nonprofit and all we do to help those single parents out there.
Oh, it's so fantastic. I actually love what you're doing. So why don't we just dive right in? And why don't you begin just by telling us what Driving Single Parents does?
Okay, so first and foremost, what we do is we really get people back in the driver's seat. So being a single parent is one of the hardest jobs you can possibly have. And doing so without a car can be very difficult. So our mission is really to get those single parent families back in the driver's seat.
And you provide them, you get them a car, you provide them
Yeah.
with an actual vehicle.
Yes, we actually give them a free vehicle at no charge to them, including tax, title, and license. Everything is taken care of. The only thing the single parent's responsible for is to obtain and maintain car insurance. And that's not our rule. That's the great state of Texas who has the law that says you have to have car insurance. So
Right. Yeah.
that's the only financial portion.
That is pretty amazing. So I have to say, people don't just wake up and start nonprofits. They don't just decide one day, like, I'm just going to give people cars. Maybe Oprah Winfrey decides that, but most people don't just decide that they're going to do that. There's always a backstory. There's always something in my experience with the hundreds of people that we've talked to. Something happened probably to you along the way that made you want to do this. So why don't you share the backstory, your story really, of how this all came to be?
Absolutely. So I'll start off way back and then I'll kind of bring it back forward. So I came from a single parent home. And when I was, living in the single parent home, we had a lot of challenges financially. My mom was disabled. She wasn't able to work. So we were limited by some child support and then also government assistance. And my mom also got a disability check. So we really didn't have a lot of funds growing up. I decided to escape that situation, that I was going to start a family of my own. I was going to get married and have the white picket fence. Well, unfortunately, that didn't happen the way I had planned. I ended up in a domestic violence marriage that was a really hard time for me. The biggest hard time is feeling trapped and knowing that I wanted that white picket fence for my kiddos. I didn't want to be a single parent. It was the last thing on my list of things to do. And so I struggled with that a lot. Well, I thought since the abuse was only happening to me and not my daughters, that I could make it work. I could make this work. I could cook a little better. I could clean a little better. I could do things a little better. I could, keep my mouth shut a little bit more. And if I did those things, then everything would be beautiful and wonderful. And we'd ride off into the sunset together. Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Right.
And one day, as I was a stay-at-home mom, I was there folding a load of laundry with my daughters, and Dr. Phil came on and he said, "It's better to come from a broken home than it is to grow up in one." And the minute I heard those words, it was almost like as if he was speaking directly to me. I literally stood up, I got a basket of clothes, a bag of diapers, I got my daughters, and we escaped that situation. And I distinctively remember strapping my daughter into the car seat, who was 5 months old at the time, and thinking, wow, am I really going to do that? How am I going to do this? This is going to be so hard. So I end up doing it. I worked 2 jobs, put myself through college, but I had this nagging tug on me to give back. And I always thought, one day when I get a better place, I'm going to find a way to help single parents succeed. And I went through a lot of struggles with childcare, and it's just really hard to be a single
Right.
parent, especially when you don't have that support from the other parent, that child support or any financial support, or, if a kid's sick at school, they, don't have anybody to go pick them up but yourself, which means you miss work. So
Right.
I just really had this passion to really want to give back. So once I kind of got a little bit myself into a little bit better place, I got out of school, I had a stable job. I still didn't have it perfect, but I knew that my
Nobody
situation
ever
was better.
does. Nobody ever
Yeah,
does.
yeah. I knew my situation was better than some. So I said, okay, how can I start thinking through how I'm going to give back? So I thought I'll start a nonprofit. And I really at first wanted to focus on childcare. And I think a lot of nonprofit founders that I've come in contact with kind of have this where they start off with, one idea, but it spins off to something else.
Right.
And that's what happened to me. I wanted to do childcare. So I was really passionate about, no matter how ambitious a single parent is, if they don't have childcare, they can't get that higher paying job. They can't work those extra hours. They can't get a second job. They can't go to school. There's a lot of things
Right.
you can't do without childcare. So I wanted to do that. Well, I ran a poll here in San Antonio, Texas, where I live, and nobody could get excited about a nonprofit that helps with childcare. There's this misunderstanding that its government assistance already takes care of that. And although they do
Right.
have some programs, um, they're very hard to get. There's lack of funding. There's long waiting lists, and so it's not the easiest thing to get.
Right.
But again, what is a good nonprofit if you don't have anybody to donate to it?
Right.
So I knew I had to pivot. So I started to think, what was my second need? What was my second need? And I distinctively remember I was actually at dinner one night, and I literally stood up at the table and I was like, "That's it! I'm going to give away cars to single parents." And my fiance at the time was at dinner with me, and immediately he said, "Oh, Cindy, no, sit down. You are not giving away anything. Are you crazy?" He is a lawyer, and he was like, "That the liability is just like outrageous, like
Right.
never going to happen. Can't do it." So of course, me being me, I listened very intently to all of his concerns. And then I woke up super early the next morning. I wrote a business plan. I built the website, and we've been giving away cars ever since. So
Oh, I love that. What
yeah,
year was that?
my story. 2017.
Oh my gosh. So,
So
I mean, starting a nonprofit, as you know, nothing is easy, but starting a business is really hard. Starting a nonprofit when you rely on the kindness of others is even harder. And so, what challenges did you face when you were starting? What were some of the obstacles you ran into besides the naysayers that say, you can't do this, it'll never happen? But what are some of the challenges?
Well, first and foremost, the challenge was, who would have thought it'd be so hard to do something so good?
Right, right? And
So
I think we all have that as nonprofit
yeah,
founders. We don't
yeah. I
it's
just
unbelievable. You
uh,
think the world's gonna open up and it's just gonna become a smooth sailing path, but it isn't usually the case, is it?
no, no. And in fact, I thought, oh, I'm doing something good. How hard could it be? Well, it can be pretty hard and pretty
Yeah,
challenging. So, me being somebody who didn't have any background in nonprofits, and I didn't know anybody else who had founded a nonprofit. In fact, I don't even think before that I had much money to give to a nonprofit. So,
right.
I didn't really know a lot about it or how to do it. And so, I had to read Audible books. I always am an avid reader. So, I read a lot. I read a lot of books and figured out, oh, wait, I need a board of directors. Wait, what? I have to have this? Wait, I need to pick a name. Like it was so
Right,
many things that I didn't know that I needed in order to really get myself in a position to where it wasn't going to fail. Because, for you talk to a lot of people who have founded nonprofits, and they fail oftentimes. It's a small percentage that actually can keep it going long term. So I
right.
knew I had to find ways to make sure that driving single parents wasn't going to be one of those. And so I worked really hard to learn everything I needed to know and gather all the people around me who were able to get on board and really help me grow it.
That's fantastic. Well, I do think it's always a struggle. I mean, raising money, I mean, it's a constant thing that we're dealing with. Marketing, PR, employees. It's a business, except our business model is a little bit trickier. Now, you have a lot of things that you do, that I know we're gonna get into a little bit later, but you have a very busy life, as everybody does, but you're an author, you're running a nonprofit, you have other businesses, you're a parent, you have a full life. What fuels you when, there's just some days you think, "How am I going to do this all? How am I gonna make this all happen?" What fuels you to keep giving, to keep doing, to keep making this happen, to keep providing these cars for single parents? What fuels you to keep to do this work when it's hard?
Yeah, well, I think back to when I was a single parent, and I remember just pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and trying and trying and trying to get above and trying to get through the day and working so hard. But it wasn't until I found my passion, and my passion is really giving back and helping others, that now I don't have to push anymore. That passion pushes me, and I'm
Mm,
able to do all the things I do with a smile on my face, and it doesn't feel like work because it's just, I feel inspired every day to give more, to do better, to try harder, to learn more. And so I feel like the power was in finding my passion.
love that. I love that. So tell us about kind of some of the successes you've had and what your impact's been. And I hate that word impact, and I have this love-hate relationship with it because I feel like when we write grants or we have certain donors, they want to know how many people, they want numbers. They want, how many people have you served? How many cars you bought? How many did that? And sometimes what we do, like you're explaining, our impact is greater than that. Providing someone a way to pick their children up from school, providing someone a way to get to work, providing someone the way to earn a livelihood and support their family, that's an immeasurable impact. That's impossible to quantify sometimes. But what would you say your impact has been as far as since 2017, what you guys have been able to accomplish?
I can give you so many scenarios and so many stories. First, I'd like to say that driving single parents, my mission with driving single parents and my entire team, because we do, it takes a village to have these nonprofits and really, build them out and help people. And so my team and I have a real strong focus on helping those who are ready and willing to help themselves. And so we're always looking for that go-getter who, just needs that car as a tool. And so we've been lucky enough and blessed enough to really have those recipients come into the program and help those. So I'll give you a couple examples. First one I'd love to give would be the very first car we gave away. And we gave that car away less than a month after I had the idea. So
Wow.
it was a very quick turnaround. Well, the person who received the vehicle was actually a single dad, which is another misconception. A lot of people think that we only help single moms.
Right.
We don't. We give away cars to single moms and dads. Well, the first recipient was John Cano, and he is an incredible person. He actually was unfortunately hit by a drunk driver. And in that accident, not only did he lose his car, but he lost his wife and he lost his right leg.
Oh,
And so he really became a single dad overnight, and then also had these major handicap needs that he had to overcome. And so the vehicle really served as that tool he needed to not only help him get his kids to and from where they needed to go, but also himself, to get himself back in the driver's seat and get that independence back. Because when you get involved in something like that, where you actually end up losing a limb, you're reliant on everyone else. But to be able
right.
to have healed enough to get behind the wheel of your own vehicle and just have that freedom of just going where you want to go and doing your thing can be really transformative. And then
Absolutely.
he has sent me pictures of his kids, graduating, or his kids doing band practice, or him and his daughter having daddy daughter time in the vehicle. And so that was 6.5 years ago. We gave him that car on April Fool's Day, believe it or not.
Oh,
And he still drives it to this day. To this day, he still
yay.
drives that very same vehicle. And I picked it out myself to make sure it met all of his needs. And so that is one of my success stories that I love. And he's just doing wonderful. His kids are flourishing. And so I'm
Oh,
just so
isn't that
grateful.
amazing? So what, if you could dream any dream for your organization, what would that be? What does it look like? What would the dream be?
I want to amplify our efforts. I want to help more people. I want to expand. I think a lot of misconception out there is that a vehicle is a luxury item. And maybe in some places it is, but I'll tell you, here in San Antonio, Texas, it's not. Oftentimes I get applications from individuals who have lost several jobs because they have to rely on public transportation. And that public transportation doesn't get you there where you need to be
Right.
in a reasonable amount of time. It might take 2 or 3 hours for them to get on all the bus transfers, to get their kid to school, to get their kid to the babysitter, to get to work. And when a bus breaks down, or a bus is running late, or their route gets canceled, it can really put out these single parents who end up being unemployed. And so here in San Antonio, it's not a luxury item. So,
Right.
dispelling all of those misconceptions are really one of the big missions I have. And then also just to help as many people as I possibly can to get back on the road again.
That's fantastic. Do you have a phrase or a motto that you live by? You're so positive and upbeat. You've been through a lot, escaping domestic violence, rebuilding your life. starting this organization, helping all these people, I feel like you must have a motto or something because you're so positive, Cindy.
I have so many, but I'll give you two. My very first one is when nothing goes right, go left.
I love that.
And
I
my
love
second
that.
one, I'm glad you like it. I do too, because it really is. I mean, I've had so many times where, you get that flat tire or you have a day where you feel like, whoa, nothing's going right. It's like, okay, good news. I can still go left. So I love that one. I use it all the time. And then the other one that I love is whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And that's a quote by Henry Ford. And it's so true because if you believe you can do something, you can. And if you believe you can't do something, you can't. And it really comes down to you and your beliefs. And so those are my two favorites.
I love that. Those are both great ones. I love that. I got to remember that one, especially that Henry Ford one. That's good. So, I mean, obviously, your life has turned around in really dramatic ways, unbelievable ways since you first heard Dr. Phil all those years ago and left your situation. And since 2017, you've kind of really focused on giving back. Not that you haven't always had kind of that spirit of helping other people. But what life lessons have you learned since starting
Geez,
this
I mean,
nonprofit?
there's so many. There's so many. I've learned that I am not a product of my circumstances. I've learned that my past doesn't define me. And yeah, years ago, I was in a situation where I didn't have running water or electricity sometimes. Sometimes I didn't have groceries or food when I was a kid. But that didn't define me. And then I ended up in a domestic violence situation. And I realized that I could easily just say, oh, poor me. And I could stop there. Or I could say, when nothing goes right, go left. And I could build a life that was everything I ever wanted.
Which it seems that you have, which I think is so fantastic. So, how has this journey changed you? Do you think that you're the same person? Do you think that you're a different person than you were?
I think I change every day. I think every single day I wake up, I don't compete against anybody else in my life. I compete against myself. And I want to be a better person today than I was yesterday. And that's something I work on every day. So I'm constantly changing. I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly growing. I'm constantly expanding my impact in whatever ways I possibly can.
I love that. You sound like my husband's a triathlete, and I was like, why would you be a triathlete? Like, why would you race against yourself? Like, you think about, any sort of athletes, you're competing against another person. And he's like, because the best competition is when you compete against yourself because you push yourself to be better, do better. And that's exactly the same. Have you ever thought about doing a triathlon, Cindy?
No, I
It might be
haven't.
the sport for you. I'm just saying. So I know that you have so many fabulous things that you do. You are an author, you have a television show, you have a nonprofit. So talk to me a little bit about ways we can find you, where we can maybe a little bit about, why don't you share a little bit about the Little Give? Because I think it's aligned with what we're talking about today.
Absolutely. So the Little Give is all about highlighting ordinary people doing extraordinary things to help others. When I first had the opportunity to host this show, of course, I said no because I was terrified because I'm afraid of public speaking. But I decided to do it afraid and do it anyways. And so now my primary thing with that show is really just showcasing all of these fantastic people. Our world is not perfect. We know it has its problems. But we also know, and everybody should know, that there's a lot of phenomenal people in this world who are out there every single day, just like yourself, every single day trying to make this place a better place. And I think if we highlight some more of that good news, send out some more of those good positive vibes, we can create a ripple effect that can really impact people throughout their day and throughout their lives. So that is what I do with Little Give. It's been amazing. I've met some incredible people on the show.
Amen to that. And this is why you're my people, Cindy, because I really think that the more of us that are amplifying the goodness in this world, and the more of us people that are listening that are consuming good material, that are choosing to go to something, turn off the news, it's depressing, and go to a place like the Little Give, or go to a place like Charity Matters, or go to a place to hear, your podcast or to read your book, to make choices where we're going toward kind of the light instead of the dark. I think that that's how we're going to change this world, with all of us focusing on the good, because there is so much good, but there aren't people that are not enough of us at least, that are amplifying it. So I think that that is so exciting. So tell us how we can support your nonprofit, how we can donate, how we can find you, how we can learn about all the great things that you're doing, your books, everything.
Okay, so for Driving Single Parents, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. And so the best way you can support us is go to our website at drivingsingleparents.org. You can also find us on Facebook at Driving Single Parents. Please go there and donate, whether it's $1, $5, really all those little gives, they really add up to big gives and they make a big impact. And since, like I said earlier, our nonprofit we have all volunteers. So we don't have employees. We don't have anybody. So our bottom line is not, just all the money goes back to helping those community members who need vehicles. And so the way that we work is as soon as we get the money to give away a car, we find that perfect recipient and we give that car away. We don't let money sit in the bank because we want to make sure that we're making that impact as soon as possible and getting that person back in the driver's seat. So that's the best way you can help us if it's a monetary donation. If you don't have the funds, no problem. Go to our go to our Driving Single Parents Facebook and share the content. Share it with a friend. Tell a neighbor. Talk to somebody who is at your veterinarian office or your local grocery store. And just talk about Driving Single Parents and the impact that we're making. Maybe somebody out there can help us. And if not, maybe that person wants to go and start something like this in their own neighborhood to help those families really become successful.
I love that. And then tell us about your website and where we can learn more about the Little Give TV show.
So you can go to littlegive.com. We have all the details there and all the episodes. That's also spun off into a podcast. You can find that podcast version on all major streaming platforms at Little Give Podcast. Or if you want to know more about me and all the other things I do, you can go to cfviews.com. And so that's C as in Cindy, F as in Frank, V as in Victor, IEWS.com. And you can get all the details there. My email address is on there. You can email me, you can text me, you can message me. I'd be happy to chat with anyone who wants to know more.
Cindy, you are amazing. You are a breath of fresh air. You are a bright light in a very dark world these days. And I am so grateful for you for what you're doing with Driving Single Parents and what you're doing just to highlight great people making the world better. So thank you so much for joining us and for sharing that. And for everybody listening, please go and look at Driving Single Parents and please look at littlegive.com. Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you so much, Heidi. It's been a pleasure being on. I greatly appreciate you and doing what you do to shine a light on these amazing people because there are so many great people and we got to keep highlighting them.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Charity Matters podcast. I really enjoyed talking to our guest, Cindy Whitman, about what it takes to start a business that truly changes people's lives. I think her comment about passion was so inspiring and true. To learn more about modern-day heroes like Cindy, or if you'd like to reach out to us, visit us at charity-matters.com or connect with us on Instagram at charitymatters. If you enjoyed our conversation, we would love it if you shared it with your family and friends. Please don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. But more than that, thank you for caring, for believing in goodness, and being a part of our movement. You are exactly what the world needs more of. Remember that together we can make a difference, one small act of kindness at a time. Charity matters.